Hello, welcome to my fifth presentation on JavaScript AI Developer course. Now in this presentation, I will discuss all about API. Now what's an API? It is an application programming interface. This would allow you to interact with external services, retrieve data, and send requests. And before we dive to a project in API, let me make a correction in my previous presentation. In the previous presentation, we have a text analyzer. Now you might wonder, in the text analyzer, if we try to run the text analyzer, why is it that we cannot see two columns in the text analyzer? In the previous discussion, we have mentioned that in the index.html, we need to display the solution in two columns. The two columns is a class called results container and a column, where we display in the first column the word count and in the second column the letter frequency. Well, the reasons for that is in the style.css we have mentioned nothing about the class results container in the column. So probably let's ask Perplexity to correct it for us. So I asked him, the result is not displayed in two columns. The first column is word count and the second is letter frequency, and he gave this answer. And we have a guess that it's simply because these classes were not defined. So we tried to find that. So in the updated CSS or styles.css, we see the here it is. We need a flex box for layout result, the results container, and the style column. Okay, so we copy that and let's try to see if it is corrected. So here in the style.css, let's place it in the bottom so that you would know the correction. I will later on attach this to the comments so that you can duplicate the results. So here we have the results container. So we have identified the two column layout. So we have a space, we will space it evenly, and then we have this dot column and the dot results container, and the width is around 48%. Set the width of each column to 48%, and let's try to see what will happen in the index.html. Now that we have defined the results.container in the column, let's try to run the code in the browser here in the Chrome. So as you can see, the word count and the frequency is separated in two columns. And let me try it again. My name is Michael. So we have a word count of 4, and of course all of the letters are we have a count of all of the letters or the letter frequency. For M, that's correct, we have 3, and for Y we have 1, and so on. So let's try to go now with our project. Now in the weather fetcher, we need to display a weather condition in a city. So the city that I am in is in Manila, Philippines. So I want to know the weather right now. So what's the condition of the weather? So it's pretty hard for us to construct code, or we start essentially from scratch without using anything, so that we identify the weather in my city. The best thing for us to do that is to use an API, so that we can have, or we can allow external services to provide us with the correct weather condition. And let me give a brief discussion for it, for the API. API in JavaScript, it could be fetching of API for HTTP request. So wherein we use the fetch method to make network requests. Okay, we can have also asynchronous wait modern approach. So this could handle API calls cleaner and easier to read. We can use third-party APIs. You can interact with third-party services like Google Maps, Open Weather API, News API for fetching the news. Here in our example, I will use Open Weather API for fetching information. And of course, we know what Google Map is for location data. But here we will use exclusively the Open Weather API to demonstrate the Weather Fetcher project. Now, again, we copy this and paste it to Perplexity AI, and we try to copy the generated code. And I have done that. And let's close the text analyzer here, and we go on to the APIs. I've created a file index.html, script.js, and style.css. And with that, I have successfully copied the code generated for us by Perplexity.ai. And here is the codes. In the doctype HTML, well, the language is English. Again, we have a UTF of 8, viewport, with device width and an initial scale of 1. And we have the title of the application, which is the weather app. And we need to link the styling, that is the style.css, and let me correct it because our styles.css has an S. So yes, yan. So the error is gone. So here in the H1, it's in the weather app. So this stands for the heading. So it's the largest by default. So we have the H1 as the highest section level, and H6 is the lowest, as mentioned in my previous presentation. So we have the city input. So you enter a city, essentially a label. So let us try to see what the label is. So let me open it in my browser. Okay, so city name. So here we can input the we enter the city. So here the identification is city input, and the placeholder is the city name. So the placeholder is city name. Okay, so we enter the city, and the placeholder is the city name. So it's a text, city input, and the placeholder is city name. Now if we click on the button here is get weather. So we have a button here which is get weather. It will call upon the get weather function. Now the get weather function is described here in the script.js. So we'll go there to script.js later, and after we hit the get weather button, it will naturally display to us the weather description. So it will tell us if it is cloudy or it's rainy or sunny here in Manila. So with that, let's try to examine the style of the web page. So the style is relatively simple. We have a font family of sans serif, and we align it at the center. As you can see, everything is at the center. So the weather information is, we have a 20 pixel margin on top, font size is 18 pixels, and the font weight is bold. So the font size is indeed bold. So let me try to analyze the script.js. So here we have to generate the API key. Now this has to be your actual API key. Now of course you don't want to share API key, but here let me try to use my API key for demonstration. So how do we generate the API key? Since we are discussing API, how do we get the API key? We have to go here to openweathermap.org. Let's try to see. We have to go there. So let me try to open another page, openweathermap.ar.org. Okay. So I have done the registration, and all we need to do is to see my API keys. And again, don't share your API keys. Here I have my API key, and all I need to do is to copy that, and upon copying we have the API key here. Now don't worry, everything will run smoothly. The registration is quite fast. You just have to follow the instruction. Now we have to identify the function get weather. As you know, the get weather here should retrieve or should forward the city, and it should retrieve the response of the server. What is the condition or weather condition in my city? Now might as well define a city. That's a constant here, that's a city. So get element by ID, that's a city input. So here we have the city input. So here we enter the city. Okay. So whatever the value the user will input there, whatever this the city is, it will be assigned here, constant city. Now if the city is blank or there's nothing there, please enter a city name because you entered nothing. So it's an alert. You entered it's not a valid city, so it's blank. So please enter a city name. So again, we have to fetch the API URL. So this is the API URL. Okay, and I have shared with you that it is in API overweathermap.org, and there we have to get the response. So if the response is okay, it's not okay because there's an exclamation point, we throw an HTTP error connection. So give the response status. So it's an error because the response is not okay, and that is the exclamation point, meaning it's not okay. With if else, so here the response is not okay, so we return else that if the response is okay, we give the response which is in JSON format. Now why JSON format? Because the JSON format happens to be a format that is human readable, so it's easy for us to write and read it, the format for the JSON. So it would respond in JSON format. Then we identify the constant, which is weather description, because we need to have the weather description. This is the data.weather description, and we get the element by ID weather description, so we have to place it here, weather description. So in the weather description, that is the text content, then weather, then might as well display the weather description, $weather description. So parsing the data from the JSON, we can now extract the weather description and place it or print it here in the $weather description. So else you need to have a catch block, console.error. So we display error fetching weather data. So it was not successful, therefore there's an error fetching the weather data. And get element weather by ID, again weather description. Instead of displaying the weather description, since it is an error this time, it might be some type of error, that is some error within the server or in the connection. So there's an error fetching the weather data, so please check the console. Okay, and that's it. That's roughly how to explain the JavaScript code and how the API was used in order to establish connection with the server. Now let's try to run the code. So we run everything in my Chrome again. So here's the weather app. We enter the city. Mine is Manila, and after hitting the get weather, it will call on the function. And so we are so lucky that the connection is connection is fine. We have established the connection with the server, and here we have retrieved the we have parsed the JSON, and we have acquired the data, and then the description is printed here, it's few clouds. So if you look at outside in my window, you will see that indeed there are few clouds. You can see few clouds in the sky. So that's it. Here I have demonstrated that through JavaScript programming we can actually use concept of API in order to establish connection with the outside the server. So in the next presentation, we will discuss more. We will explore more programs written in JavaScript. But for now, that's all, and thank you.